Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Behave. We're on Facebook Live, guys.
That's interesting, being on Facebook when you're on the George stream. It's a little strange. People start texting and you're like, it tells you which one they're texting from too, which is kind of cool. I like that. It tells me which one. She kept getting all these weird things in the show the other night. And everyone's like, where the hell are these names coming from? I said, it's Twitch. They're gamers. I said, you can't tell them by the name. They're gamers. Gamers.
I'm playing your intro on Facebook, guys.
Let's see.
That's interesting.
So from now on, starting next week, there will be 3 venues, and the week after, you'll be 8 venues plus the 150 venues you already got to. So these are all 8.
Welcome to Chasing Prophecy Radio, where we discuss the unidentified, the unexplainable, paranormal, conspiracies, and much more. Starring your host and co-host, Jenny Nicasio, Sean Kelly, and Jason Sledgehammer and Petro. Brought to you by UPRN Network. Now for your host, Jenny
I just like the fact that
Nicasio.
He's following a bunch of channels right now. It's a pain in the ass. Because I got 3 or 4 I follow, and it's like, and then they do for my UFO show every Wednesday. They do their own chat room. Facebook crowd does their own chat room. Okay, what's that? What's the background noise? Okay, who got noise coming in? Okay,
Oh, it's coming in.
Well, guys, this is really interesting. That picture appears to have been deleted off my Facebook page.
Oh, great.
Oh, tell Facebook we love you.
I did not delete it. So who the hell did?
Love you some. Yeah, you gotta love you some Facebook people, man. You just gotta love them SOBs. All right, guys, let me drop y'all in here real quick. So here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're live.
Good evening and welcome to Chasing Prophecy on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, FM 107.1 New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. Remember to like us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram and Twitch TV. I'm Jenny Nicasio, along with Sean Kelly and Jason Petro, and guest host Ryan O'Shea from Pittsburgh Paranormal. We're excited to have back on the show this evening Mike Barra. He's New York Times bestselling author, Ancient Aliens on Mars, which we will dive into because of the recent Mars landings. He's a lecturer, TV personality, where I first saw him, and I loved watching him, and that's why I wanted to be his Facebook friend. After spending more than 25 years as an engineering designer consultant for major aerospace companies. Most recently, Mike appeared on NBC Universal Sci-Fi Network on the special Aliens of the Moon. The Truth Revealed alongside NASA astronaut and American hero Buzz Aldrin. The show was based primarily on his 2012 book, Ancient Aliens on the Moon. In the fall of 2016, Adventures Unlimited published Mike's 7th book, Hidden Agenda, NASA and the Secret Space Program. In 2017, Mike appeared in 5 episodes, yes, 5, UFOs, The Lost Evidence on Destination America, I remember saying that, and Discovery Networks, and published his first novel, Lightbringer, a dark mission novel, through Kindle Publishing. In 2018, he returned with Ancient Aliens and JFK, I love that one, Race to the Moon, and the Kennedy's assassination for Adventures Unlimited Press. Wow, that's a mouthful. Happy Thursday, everyone. We have a great show tonight. A new chapter of Mars.
Happy Thursday.
Yeah, happy Thursday. Exploration has begun. Now, Mike, since you are here with us.
Yes.
It's been a while since...
That's an old bio, by the way.
Yeah.
That bio.
Well, it's still a very good one.
2014 or something.
Well, you're going to have to update it.
All right.
I want to ask you, since you wrote your books on ancient Mars, has anything changed in your opinion since then?
Well, no, and that's why I haven't written any more Mars books, because you just keep going through the images, and there's hundreds of thousands of them now, maybe even millions of images from the rovers and the orbiting spacecraft, and you just keep seeing more stuff. You just keep seeing more ancient alien ruins all over the place. I'm kind of excited about Perseverance and what it's going to find, but again, it's going to be more of the same. It's going to be it's going to be exactly the same kind of thing we've been seeing for the last 20 years now, almost, from the surface of Mars. And it's actually, it's more than 20 years. So since we first landed Pathfinder and Viking, and we're going to find stuff. We're going to find artifacts. We're going to find mechanical devices and things like that. And I don't, at this point, I'm kind of tired of talking about it. Oh, look, there's another one. And it's mind blowing to some people, but I think it's pretty obvious to anybody who's paying attention at this point.
Yeah, I went through all the pictures today. I mean, there's, what was it, 115 of the raw pictures and videos. Have you looked at those?
No, I haven't started yet. I wanted to give them kind of a database because the first pictures were kind of almost macroscopic, very close to the rover itself, not very large. Sorry about my dog. Not very big, in terms of the rocks and things that you're looking at. So I try not to read too much into them. I think when it gets more on the move around the area there, the crater, that we're going to find more interesting stuff.
Sean, your thoughts on that?
I'm pretty intrigued. And Mike, thanks for coming back on. I was looking at some of your YouTubes that you were guest on, and what about the face of Mars? I mean, to me, it don't look like a face. It's craters, like you said. And I don't know. What's the big deal about it?
Well, I don't know how you can say that, to be honest with you, because it looks exactly like a face. It's artificially constructed. I can show you close-ups of girders and cross beams and all kinds of artificial stuff all over it in the high resolution. And I think that, NASA's worked very hard to distort some of these pictures, so it really kind of depends on which pictures you're looking at. And you also have to consider the fact that there has been quite a bit of erosion on this thing. That's one of the reasons why we can see some of the substructure and artificial girders and things, because they've been exposed by weathering over at least, I would say, probably hundreds of thousands of years. So I just kind of fundamentally don't agree with you on that. And there's a lot of other stuff around it. There's pyramids and things that are quite obviously artificial right in the same general area. If it were in complete isolation, then you could just say, oh, it's kind of a funny looking hill. But I think we're way past that at this point. The other thing that can happen too, Sean, is that 3D projection in your head, spatial projection. I don't know if you ever took the test in high school or anything. They used to give us tests where they would say, can you look at a 2D picture and project in your mind what that looks like in 3D? And it used to be you used to have that skill to be an engineer back when we had to draw things on two-dimensional paper and vellum and Mylar drawings to make engineering stuff like aircraft and things. You don't have to do it anymore because the computer does it all for you. But what we found back then in the 80s was that, only about a third of the population can do that easily, can just like automatically do it. Another third can be sort of trained to project into 3D and see, visualize what they're looking at. And then another third of the people just aren't ever going to get it. And that's why I think this has been such a hard sell over the decades, is because maybe you're one of the guys in the third category that just can't quite project in your head what you're looking at. I'm not, I don't know if that's true, but that used to be.
No, that's me.
Yeah, so that's an issue, and it's really, you have to really try to lead people through it, and short of making the thing into a 3D mesh and molding it and letting people physically touch it, it's really hard to get across to people sometimes what this thing actually looks like. And again, NASA has worked very hard over the decades to distort and stretch the images and shoot them in the worst lighting and things like that to try to make it look less like a face. But I'm just going to tell you, Sean, I think I'm no dummy, and it's artificial, and it's.
Oh, I know you're not.
Okay. Well, I agree with Mike. I think it's real.
That's why engineering used to be a male-dominated profession, because you had to be able to do that on an engineering drawing, and men are much better at that than women, and it's just the reality of it. And then as 3D computers came into it, we got more and more female engineers started coming in, because that projection part was just done automatically by the computer. So maybe someday we can scan the face on Mars in stereo, and this has actually been done, and put it into 3D, although the programs were kind of primitive. This is back in 2008, 2009, that kind of thing. So,
Jason, what do you think? Do you agree with Mike or Sean?
Oh, I definitely have to go with Mike on this one. It definitely resembles the face that they're talking about. That's just my opinion. But I'm actually pretty excited to see what they find up there on Mars, just from hearing past speculations that, what if Mars was inhabited first and then, people or aliens actually destroyed it and actually came to Earth at that point.
That's a good one.
So I'm really curious to see what they're going to find, and can unveil a lot of information and artifacts.
Definitely. Definitely. Ryan, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, first of all, Mike, it's great to speak with you. Jenny, Sean, and Jason, thanks for having me on. Great long-time listener, first-time caller, as they say. This is a fascinating topic, and I'm excited that people are looking into it. I think more people need to be looking into it. That said, I tend to be more skeptical when it comes to this stuff. I am very fascinated about the idea of life on Mars. I think it's worth looking into. If it does exist, I think it's likely subsurface. I think it's likely in lava tubes or underground closer to the core. I think it is likely microbial. I think those are the types of things we might find. That said, I hope I'm wrong. I hope there is evidence of past civilizations on the surface of Mars. I think that would be absolutely fascinating. I think we need to study it further. And I hope that face is real. I hope these pyramids are real. I am a little bit skeptical, though.
I believe it.
Ryan, lucky for you, you are wrong. And that is a face on Mars, and there's all kinds of shit everywhere on this. Ooh, can I say that? I'm sorry. God, did I just screw up there?
That's
sorry.
Okay. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I keep forgetting. Is it digital or are we on over the air? Anyway,
No,
there's
we're
all
on the
kinds
air.
of stuff on Mars. There's all kinds of stuff. And the other thing, too, is people don't realize this, but we discovered life on Mars, microbial life. You're right. But we discovered it in 1976. There were 2 landers that were sent by the Carl Sagan-led JPL back in 76, the Viking 1 and Viking 2 landers, and they both landed, and they both found evidence of microbial life. They ran an experiment called the labeled release experiment, which was concocted or created by Dr. Gil Levin, and they both came back positive. And then there were 2 other tests which were supposed to be confirming tests, and they came back negative. So NASA immediately jumped on it and shot it down. But it turns out now, years later, that Dr. Levin has shown that the other 2 experiments were simply inferior. There was no way they were going to discover life. They were not sensitive enough to discover the information or the gaseous output from the microbial life forms. And he has stood by his proof of life on Mars for over 40 years now, 50 years almost. And he's absolutely been correct in this. And, he was one of the first people that talked about how they had changed the color of the pictures on the Martian surface to make the sky look red, when in fact it's blue. It looks like Mars looks a lot more like Arizona, and I'm not, maybe even a little bit like Sedona than it does this Technicolor red fake picture they've spread to us. So we have already discovered life on Mars. We're just waiting for NASA to catch up and admit it, because deep down inside, there's a bunch of people inside NASA that already know that and have known it at a minimum since 1976.
So, Mike,
what are they waiting for anyway?
They want to do this on their time, on their time frame, within their context, and they also want to do it with their spin. They want to be able to spin it their way. They don't want some independent scientist saying, "Hey, I discovered life. There's life on Mars, and Mars is really not that much different from the Earth." And gosh, what if it turns out that we can terraform Mars comfortably and easily by just genetically designing a few lichens and plants and shooting them up to Mars and spreading them all over the planet, letting them reproduce, and turn Mars back into what I think it once was, which is a warm, wet, lush, green planet, just like the planet Earth. And they have an agenda. It's a secret agenda. It's a hidden agenda, as my book, 2016 book, is called. And they've been doing this for a long time, and it's they're under control of higher ups in the intelligence community and the Defense Department, who do not want you to know this until they are ready to tell you. And then they're going to use it, I think, to spin it into something terrifying rather than something positive.
That's not good. When you say life, I would like to see more intelligent life that are comparable, as maybe equal to us. Now, could there be something like that, like Ryan said, like inside, tunnels that go deep into the core of Mars, or do you think they left?
Well, I do think they left, but remember, if you look at, the thing to do is to look at pop culture, I think, because they've been sending us messages through the pop culture for decades and decades and decades. And one of my favorite movies is an old science fiction film called Forbidden Planet. And in there, it's a story of how they fly. The spaceship flies to a planet around the star Altair. In reality, the planet is meant to be Mars. And the story tells you that there is an ancient, highly technically advanced civilization under the ground on Altair 6, or AKA Mars. And they go down and they examine it and they find it. So what you see on the surface is the ruins of this highly advanced civilization. The thing is, Jeannie, they're not even as advanced as us. They appear to have been far more advanced than we were, because they could do things architecturally that we can't really do yet, as far as I can tell. And so I'm positive that there is the remnants of a lost Martian civilization under the surface. It's just a question of getting down there, if we haven't already done that in secret, on the secret space program stuff, and examining it and giving us the information of what's there.
When we were talking in the green room about, you had posted on your Facebook page what you called a cat. There's an image that looks to me like almost reptilian, and you think it's a statue. We were talking.
Yeah.
Can you?
I did just look, and I definitely put it on my Instagram, and I loaded that up to my Facebook, and I got comments on Facebook, and now when I go back and look on my Facebook, I can't see it anymore. It appears that the post has been taken down, and I sure as heck didn't take it down. So I'm just kind of curious, hey, what the heck's going on here? There must be something about that information that they don't like. And I'm looking back through it right now, and I'm not seeing it anywhere. And to me, I think it's from what I can tell, it's about 65 feet tall. It's kind of in an alcove that's built into the side of a mountain. There's ridges and like ledges that you could walk along up to this thing if you were gonna, I don't know, leave an offering and worship the great kitty god. But yeah, it looks to me like more like a cat. It's got a cat's head.
Well, the Egyptians worship them.
Well, it could be anything. We have pretty high resolution images of it, but it definitely stands out. Now, I've looked through most of that image, and I don't really see anything else on there that's pretty obviously artificial. So that's.
So I noticed something about this picture. I'm actually looking at it right now because Jenny saved it and sent it earlier. I got to be honest with you. For some reason, I keep giggling because it looks like Johnny Bravo, the cartoon character, sniffing a cat.
Yeah, it actually looks like a cat playing air guitar on Mars.
Yeah, it's like Johnny Bravo. It's like, hey, what's up?
And he's got human feet, and he sounds like a person. And the thing is too is you got to remember, back to the face on Mars. There are people that argued, and I don't think without some support behind it, that one half of the face appears to be human and the other half is more feline. It looks like a cat. And if you do symmetries across the center line of this thing, if you flip them over, you get cat and you get person. And people don't know this, but cats have a lot more genetic similarity to us than really pretty much any other species. And so are they trying to tell us something? Is there some message in that? Is it connected to the Egyptian civilization, which also worshipped cats? Yeah. Was there a part feline species that lived on Mars for a while? I don't know, but it's pretty interesting to talk about, and it's pretty interesting to look at the evidence. I would love to be able to fly there and take a look at that big kitty statue and try to figure out what the hell it is.
Yeah.
It might start purring.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it doesn't get mad.
Before we move on, I want to pause and mention author C.L. Gaber Sci-Fi's her novels. She has a series. Scientists agree that the human mind doesn't fully form until you're 25 years old. It begs the question, what would happen if you were to die young? Where would you go? Where did they go? Walker Callahan went to sleep in her own bed last night. She woke up somewhere in the middle of an adventure of afterlife time. No rules, no fears, no limits. Why? You can't die twice. Ascenders High School for the Recently Departed has been called an epic and the best paranormal book series ever. Original and unput down. Available on Amazon. And you can check the link on our Chasing Prophecy website. Okay, sorry. I gotta plug our
You
sponsors.
gotta plug what you gotta plug.
You gotta
right?
plug it. You gotta do it. It's a great series. You guys gotta check it out. But going back to the Ancient Alien book, Ancient Mars book that you read.
Ancient Aliens on Mars.
On Mars. Now that picture, was that from your book?
Yeah, it was in the book. Actually, I did 2 books: Ancient Aliens on Mars and Ancient Aliens on Mars 2. And at some point, I'm gonna combine them together and maybe add some new stuff from Perseverance and make it one single book. But yeah, it's in. I forget actually which volume it's in. I think it might be in volume 2. But it's bizarre. I mean, it's something I can't explain. And people are like, "Oh, where'd you get that image?" And I'm like, "Well, it's this big, gigantic JP2 image. Go take a look at it." And I think it's in the lower right-hand corner, and it's there. And there doesn't seem to be anything else around it that I couldn't describe as natural. But I don't know what the hell it is. But knowing already that there is this, there's vast amounts of evidence of this ancient civilization on Mars, then it's pretty easy for me to say, well, yeah, it is something, you know?
Yeah, there was those big pyramids too that I saw pictures of, the pyramids. Mm-hmm. And that face on Mars, that is big. That's not little. I mean, the pictures make it look little.
No, it's about 1 mile wide by 1.5 miles long. So it is not small. It is big. And there is a pyramid called the D&M pyramid next to it. It's a 5-sided pentagonal pyramid. It's damaged, it's eroded, but you can reconstruct it, you know, using normal techniques that the people that have done satellite imagery analysis have done for years. And then there's all kinds of other objects in that immediate area called Cydonia around the face, and they all appear to be artificial. So,
yeah. Mike, do you have any idea from your research how old these artifacts might be? Do you have any estimate of when they could have been built?
Gosh, you know, people always ask that question, and the straight, truthful answer is no. It has to have been in the fairly distant past because of I think the state of collapse. If you look at some of the pyramids, there was one pyramid I did a comparison on. It was in Elysium, which Carl Sagan saw some tetrahedral pyramids in Elysium, the Elysium region of Mars back in the late 60s and early 70s. And then there was other ones taken by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter that are an exact match for these pyramids in China. And I mean, literally an exact match. And I just overlaid them and like, okay, they're perfect. And the erosion pattern is exactly the same, where you have some slumping sides and things like that. And, you know, you look at these things and you just say to yourself, well, if that one is artificial and it looks exactly like this other one, except this one on Mars is 4, 6, 10 times bigger, it's pretty easy to conclude that it's not a mountain. I mean, mountains come up in mountain ranges. They aren't sitting by themselves in the middle of nowhere shaped like a pyramid that matches an earthly structure. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways you can look at this stuff and make your arguments and figure out what's really been going on up there.
Did you see any bases or anything that it looks like it might be like some kind of air travel?
You can see entire cities. There's a guy named Neville. I want to say Neville Chamberlain, but that's not who it is. I forget his name, but he's great at searching this stuff out. And he's seen he recently found basically what amounts to an entire cityscape. You've got streets, you've got eroded foundations, you've got surviving structures. There's a dome-like structure there. It looks like what is it, St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, in the Vatican City. I think I nicknamed it Vatican City on Mars. Gosh, Neville, I forget Neville's last name, but he's Scottish, but he does a brilliant job. And, you know, there's just no question when you look at it what it is, but there's places like that all over Mars. There's another area that people call Parrot City because there's what some people thought was like a glyph of a big giant parrot, which I just think is an eroded mountain. But next to it is an entire seaside village, again, with all these parallel roads and streets and concrete walls sticking up out of the ground, and they're all ruined and beaten up, but there's no question that they're artificial structures.
Do you think they're going to get some new pictures to validate that?
Well, yeah. The thing is, with the rover, they're going to be roving through on the ground, and we've already seen from all the other rovers, we've seen just picture after picture of what looks like electrical equipment, mechanical devices, I mean, air conditioners, circuit boards, partially eroded buildings. They don't land these things too close to structures. It's in, I think the crater's called Jezero Crater. Where is it? Jezero Crater. But there are some areas there that from the low resolution mapping images that have been shared, they do look kind of interesting. So they may have landed this thing fairly close to what they think are some ruins, and they're going to go looking for those. So, yeah. Hey,
Sean, what are your thoughts on that?
I need to see the proof.
Of course.
I do. That's...
He's our skeptic.
I need to see.
Well, no, Sean,
yeah,
I mean...
Tonight I am.
No, you're correct. I have to see the proof, too, before I decide it. But I finally reached a point where I'm like, okay, this is proven to me. So now I'm simply operating from this perspective that I've seen enough. I know there's an ancient civilization on Mars. So what's next? What's the next thing we're going to see, you know?
That's what I'm waiting for.
And you'll reach that point, too. If you keep looking, believe me, you'll keep seeing stuff.
What about you, Jason?
I'm pretty curious to see, because with the Jezero Crater, they're saying that they're finding clays and stuff that only form, when there was like presence of water, and there may have been a giant delta there, that, had a lot of life forms in it until it went dry, But if there was life there, my ultimate question would be like, what exactly happened to make the whole planet just turn to complete ruins as we see it, from where we're at,
Question.
Well, and, you just really hit the biggest reason why NASA doesn't want to talk about this, because NASA will not tell you that Mars is not a planet. It's a moon of another planet that used to exist basically in the same orbit that Mars inhabits now. And it was very close, about 25,000 miles away from this parent planet, which was one of these, I think, what they call super Earths that they see in other solar systems but don't see in ours, which also have a tendency to be kind of unstable. And at some point in the distant past, that planet, which I nicknamed Phaeton in my books, and other people have called it other names, exploded. And I don't know whether it was a natural explosion, which it could have been. There are mechanisms by which planets can explode, and it completely ripped away half the atmosphere, wiped out the civilization. It spattered one hemisphere of Mars. If you look at roughly the southern hemisphere that used to be facing this planet, it's just, there's so many craters you can't even count them or name them, and that's all debris from this exploding planet. And then it ripped away the atmosphere and the water, and everything in the north is sort of the old surface where there are fewer and fewer impacts. So NASA's got that completely backwards, and that's what wiped out the civilization. So imagine if they tell us this. Oh, well, we found evidence of a civilization on Mars. Okay, great. That's really cool, guys. Thank you for sharing that. It's an ancient alien civilization. And then the first question, what's the first question going to be? The first question is going to be, okay, so you're telling us that there was a super advanced civilization on the planet Mars eons ago, and it's now completely wiped out and in ruins. And NASA says yes. So the first question you're going to ask is, well, what happened to them? And if the answer is that it was a moon in orbit around another planet that either was exploded, like in a war, or exploded on its own, the second question is going to be, wait a minute, planets can explode? And they're not going to deal with that. And that's a big reason why they have to keep this secret, because that's the real secret history of the solar system. On my YouTube channel, I do have, I think, a secret history of the solar system video on there that you guys can go look at, that will kind of explain to you what the solar system used to look like. I think there were two planets, one where Mars is now roughly, and another one where the asteroid belt is. And both of them either went away and blew up, or they were blown up in some sort of ancient cataclysm. And it could have been, I think the best time is a couple million years ago, but I mean, think about it. We now think that the dinosaurs were wiped out by the KT event, which was some huge asteroid impacts in about 65 million years ago. So it could be as far back as 65 million years ago that happened and destroyed the very advanced humanoid civilization, I think, on Mars, because again, I'm arguing the face on Mars is at least half human if not fully human. So why would you build a humanoid face on Mars as a monument if you weren't human, if that's not what you look like? So, there's all these great questions, but I just think NASA are never going to answer them, because that would just create too many other questions. And if people start realizing that the lives they're living are very fragile, and everything could go to hell in a handbasket in about 15 minutes, they may not get up and go to work the next day or be productive. So it creates a lot more problems if you admit that scenario, which I think at this point is pretty strongly, obviously true.
I mean, if you think about it, like, imagine, like, millions of years down the road, say something happens to Earth and we're all wiped out, and then life forms make their way and find Earth, and they start doing what we're doing to Mars, and then they see something like Mount Rushmore. They're gonna be like, look at these faces here. Like, what happened here? What was this? Kind of the same thing.
Exactly. And they may not want to tell anybody, especially once they figure out why that civilization doesn't exist anymore.
We're going to take a station break real quick. If you have a fascination with mysterious crimes, unsolved mysteries, perplexing cults, and all that fall in between, follow the girls from Cults, Crimes, and Cabaret. Their weekly podcast covers the horrible happenings that occur and across the nation. Melissa and Whitney provide an insightful yet eye-opening approach to these acrodytes. Their laid-back conversation styles feels like you're hanging out with them or having a glass of wine. So, with your closest friends. So, they cover new cases, and every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform, you can find the link Ascenders too, with Cults, Crimes, and Cabernet. So, make sure you check them out. And the link is on our Facebook, and there's also a episode, so you can check it out. Okay, guys. Now we're going to talk about going to the moon and finding bases. So, Mike, would you tell us a little bit about those moon bases?
Well, the moon, like Mars, not unlike Mars, was once inhabited by, I think, a very, very advanced civilization. It appears to have been all over the place, because when you look at even some of the Chinese landers, you can see evidence of these glass-like structures up in the sky above the landing sites that are reflecting and refracting light all over the place. And those would be, I think, probably made of lunar glass, which is an ideal thing to make a meteor shield out of on the moon, which has no atmosphere. And I think we're pretty clear on that it's a vacuum and there's not really an atmosphere there. And it appears to me that again, is in a state of significant ruin. And below that, on the surface, if you again look at old Apollo era photos, and new photos are doing a lot better job of photoshopping, but you see all kinds of things. You see pyramids, you see roads, you see bridges, you see buildings, you see antenna, you see eroded structures, you see all kinds of amazing things on the lunar surface, which is what I talked about in Ancient Aliens on the Moon, another one of the books that I wrote. So there's just all kinds of stuff there. So,
Sean, what are your thoughts on the moon bases?
Well, you know what, Jenny, I was actually doing some studying the other night, and
that's great.
yes, yeah, around the spot, and correct me, Mike, if I'm wrong, but I read that in 1959, the Army and the Navy wanted to put bases on the moon at that time, but everybody laughed it off. And 2013, I think the files were unclassified, and there was a chance, a time where they were actually thinking about putting a base on the moon. What? Do you have any feedback on that?
Yeah, that was. There were a lot of different plans. One of them was Project Horizon, which was this idea that they were going to launch about 140 rockets to the moon, and part of it was that they were going to try to soft land these big, basically empty fuel tanks, on the moon, and then they were going to put some people on the moon and get together and kind of, I don't know, use cranes or something to move them around, stick them together, bury them under the sand a little bit there, the surface, and to create radiation shielding and build habitats. And that was the original plan. And it didn't really work out that way. It was hyper expensive, even more expensive than the entire Apollo program itself. But it was definitely planned. And as far as anybody knows, it never really was executed. But the interesting thing is that WikiLeaks released a document about 2 years ago, back in 2019. Or at least it was the metadata for the document. And the document is from, I believe, Bolivia. And it's a Bolivian embassy document that says, we've come across information that indicates that the USSR in 1979 used a nuclear weapon to destroy an American base on the moon. And that's all we have. We don't actually have the document. I know there's some people trying to get it. I mean, Clyde Lewis has been trying to get it for a while. And that's what we have. And it's pretty amazing. So that would indicate that some sort of secret base was developed and put on the surface of the moon by the United States, at least back in 1979, before the Ruskies nuked it.
Jason?
Interesting.
Jason, you have any thoughts?
I'm just wondering, if they're talking about putting bases and everything up on the moon, which is really cool, if we could get like stations up there and people could habitat it. What would be the plan after that to try and take it another step and make it so we could just start sending people to just live up there or go up there for vacations?
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think a lunar vacation would be part of the deal, but I mean, the idea, look, at some point you have to expand, right? You have to go off this planet because looking at what happened to Mars, there's a lot of stuff that could happen to us here on Earth. There's all kinds of hazards, and space is not a very friendly place. So, it makes sense to kind of expand and develop some lunar infrastructure. And from there, theoretically, you could go on to Mars. You don't have to wait. But, I think the first step is, Moonbase Alpha is actually building a public base on the moon. And you just got to keep expanding it. Unfortunately, I don't feel like there's a lot of governmental impetus right now to spend the kind of money that's required to develop that. I mean, really, we should have a moon base by now, and it should be like something out of 2001. It really should, but we just haven't done that for various reasons that seem, I don't know, a little bit nonsensical.
Ryan?
So if there are or were in the past beings on the moon, I think it's likely that they didn't evolve there. I think it's likely that they traveled from elsewhere. Perhaps they are that Martian civilization that we previously talked about. I'm not quite sure about that. It could also be ancient Earth beings that we've lost knowledge of over time. I'm interested to learn more about that. And I did talk to Sean and Jenny about this. I don't know if the rest of you know, but I host a podcast called Future Grind, which explores the future of science and technology. And space exploration is part of that. And we have worked with a Pittsburgh-based space robotics company, Astrobotic, which is planning the first ever commercial lunar landing later this year. And we have a payload going up with them on that lander. And it will be interesting to see that I am including an episode of this radio show, this exact episode we're talking on now, on that lander. So this will be on the moon. So hopefully when we have those moon bases created, perhaps we're going to have future lunar beings listening to this radio show and us talking about that future. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Hey, listen, we're going to talk more about that, but we have a caller right now. Go ahead, caller.
Hi. My name's Bert. I'm calling in to see if you ever heard of the theory of the hollow moon theory, and that the moon is actually a space station. And whenever NASA launched those rockets a couple years back, that they were trying to penetrate it.
Yeah, of course I've heard that one, and I wrote about it in Ancient Aliens on the Moon. And first of all, to agree with Ryan, yeah, the moon is inhospitable to life unless you build a completely artificial structure around it, like a glass dome, which we see lots of evidence of on the lunar surface. But yeah, they actually did an experiment on Apollo 16 where they launched, or they took the lunar module, the lander, the ascent stage, and shot it into the moon. And since they had been on the moon now 4 or 5 times at that point, they had various seismic stations, and they did find that the moon resonated. It rang, as they say, rang like a bell for like several hours afterwards. I think it was as long as 12 hours, which indicates that at the very least there's vast caverns inside the moon that are hollow, because these sound waves were bouncing all over the inside of the place. So that's an interesting indication. I've heard the theories about the moon being from somewhere else. Some people say, well, it was once a moon of Jupiter that was moved here. And the moon has a tremendous effect, a beneficial effect on life on Earth. It sort of regulates the magnetic field, and it slows the rotation of the Earth. Of course, we all know about the menstrual cycle for women. So there's definitely a connection between the moon and life on the Earth. And it would be the perfect place if you were going to study life on Earth or experiment with life on Earth. You would want to do it from someplace nearby, and the moon makes a pretty good way station for that, or a base to do that kind of thing from. As far as it being completely hollow, I didn't really go that way in my research. What I think is it's a natural object that was fissioned off of the Earth. I think the way planets form is that they are kind of spewed out from the sun. It's called the solar fission model, and then the planets cool and spin and slow down, and then sometimes they fission off their moons. They spin off from this molten kind of plasma state and then slow down and solidify and spin, and that's what I think it started as. But I don't think there's any question that it's been, on a massive scale, it's been modified on a very, very massive scale, probably by multiple different civilizations over the 4 or 5 billion years that the planet Earth has been around.
There you go. Thanks for calling in, Bart.
Thank you.
Was it Bart or Bert?
I think it was Bert.
Because my middle name is Herbert, so got another
okay.
Bert.
There you go.
Hey, Bert, attorney.
Jason, stop. Don't make me laugh. I think it's a fascinating conversation.
It's a great name. The name Herbert is German, and it means Army of Light.
There you go.
Warrior of Light. That's what it actually means. So be proud. Be proud of being a Herbert. Herbert. I am Herbert. Say that in my best Robert Shaw 1960s German war movie accent. It's gonna be Herbert.
Oh my God.
You're crazy. I think it's a fascinating conversation. I would love to be able to take a shuttle or to go to moon or Mars for that matter. But I've watched a lot of movies about Mars.
Yeah, the moon is easier to get help there if something gets messed up. But yeah, it would be, and it would. I think that commercial development, take a vacation on the moon, honeymoon on the moon. I think that'd be a great thing. So that's where I think we're going to make hay here with this kind of stuff in the next 50 years.
Definitely.
It would be fun unless you took a wrong turn and ended up just going off into a whole bunch of nothing. Never to come back.
Well, that's true.
Go to the sun.
That's sort of like with a flat Earth, flat moon. Go off the flat. I think it's fascinating. Mike, getting back to your career, what do you have? What have you been doing? Are you writing any more books?
Well, like everybody else, I've been sitting around a lot the last year or so.
That's true.
There were multiple TV things that were going to happen that had to be shut down for all of this COVID nonsense, and please don't get me started on that. So I've been kind of in stasis. There's plans for things to happen once this crap is lifted. I was thinking about writing a book. I was going to call it Ancient Aliens and the Deep State. But,
there you go.
But I haven't really done much on that. I haven't done much on that because I don't know how it's going to end yet, and I'm waiting to see what the end is going to be. So, I other than that, no, I do my YouTube show on a daily basis and try to keep abreast of everything conspiracy related. And I'm just kind of waiting, like everybody else, to see if anything happens to shift us back into a positive direction and open the world back up again. And I think that's got to be our top priority right now.
Yeah. The last time you were on the show, was before the election. I know. There's a lot of talk. I know we weren't supposed to talk about this, but there's a lot of talk about March 4th now. What are they expecting, these people, these Q people? What are they expecting?
Well, I'm personally not expecting anything because I don't think there's a plan, and I don't think they know what they're doing.
Right.
And I think they should have acted 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've been highly critical of the Q side of the fence for just kind of being Pollyanna and just saying, oh, trust the plan. Well, what plan? Where's the evidence of the plan?
Yeah.
I mean, right now we see a lot of bad stuff going on
Exactly.
in our country and around the world. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I can't bring myself to use the P word with this guy, but Biden just issued an order to kill a program that Trump had started that persecutes people, sex offenders living illegally in the United States. What kind of sane person would do that? Nobody. So, I mean, we have a very serious crisis here.
Ship them all to Mars and leave them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's only one way out, guys, and that involves the military.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, they aren't acting right now. So I don't know if something's going to happen. If it's in the news and they're talking about March 4th, which the Q haters are, nothing's going to happen on March 4th.
That's what I said.
But I do keep hearing from people that things are going to get better in March and April. So,
I don't know. I don't know.
We shall see. All I know is that this has got to get turned around, I think, fairly quickly, or we're not really going to have a country left.
No,
so
we're not. And it's kind of scary, actually. I mean, I can't even call him. I call him. You can look it up. You can go. You can message me later.
Can't say it on the air, huh?
I can say it's TJ.
Yeah. So I mean, again. We have this on my show. I have to call it the erection frog because you can't use the actual words or you get taken down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this has to be resolved, and the Supreme Court obviously disappointed us, and I don't know. I just don't know where we're going to be in June or July. I have to wait and see. But I think that again, that's like I say, I'd like to write the book, but I don't know the end yet.
Yeah,
so
I don't know. I mean, I'm glad he didn't get rid of Space Force, and I know though his news lady was making fun of it, that Space Force. It sounds like something like a kindergarten would say, but she really made me mad when she said that. But I think it's a great program.
Yeah. Get ready for more of that. I mean, Space Force is designed to reveal secret technologies that we've had for a long time that they want to put out to the public. But unless the right person is in charge, that's not going to happen. And right now, the right person is not in charge, or at least doesn't appear to be in charge. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, I've been watching you on YouTube. You have our old producer on there, Jennifer. She used to produce us before we came.
Oh, Jen used to produce
Yes,
you. Oh,
we started. Yeah, we started with Jen, and then we went to FM 107 UFO Paranormal Radio Network, and that's where we started at. So we know John. How's Sean? Did Sean take a nap again?
Absolutely. No, I'm not.
You were taking a nap.
Yeah, close to the witching hour, though.
No, I know it is coming to the. Well, I'm glad you reminded me. We always go over. We're not supposed to, but we always do. Yeah, we better start to wrap it up. But thank you, and they can. What is the name of your radio show on YouTube?
Well, it's just on my YouTube channel. We have a different thing every day. We have the Monday morning threesome with me and Jen and Casey Jones, who's one of our reporters. We have Toxically Masculine Tuesdays with me and Blake Wally. We have Tell the Truth Wednesday.
Boy. How do you do that? That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, we just got today was Deep Thought Thursday, so we had some deep thoughts. Tomorrow will be Free Reading Friday with Jen. I'm going to be doing that. So it's just on my YouTube channel, and we try to stream every day. So far, we've been warned, but they haven't taken us down.
That's good.
And believe me, we can use more subscribers. So by all means, come on in. And then I got my blog spot, mikebarrett.blogspot.com, where I try to do updates in between, and that's where you will go if I should disappear off a certain platform.
Okay.
A nameless that has red and white as its colors, or any other platform. I'm on about my 10th Twitter account at this point.
That's awesome.
Well,
you're always welcome to co-host here with us as a guest. You can always be a contributor. We'd love to have you. You're very informative. We love you. And tell your brother David we said hello. We'd like to get him back on the show. Okay. Well, if you go to a YouTube channel or Pittsburgh...
Well, Jenny, I will, absolutely.
Definitely.
Welcome back.
You disappeared there for a little bit. Well, if you go to our YouTube channel and make sure you like us and subscribe, Pittsburgh Paranormal Society, and go to Pittsburgh Paranormal Society Facebook page and subscribe. We want to thank our good friends at Audible again. Just remember, you can download Titus, listen offline anytime at www.audibletrial.com. / I think that's what it's called, Chasing Prophecy Radio. Please check out my author page, J.E. Nicasio. And don't forget, we're having a Facebook Live on Friday at 8. And check out our YouTube channel. Well, good night, everyone. And thanks again, Mike, for joining us. And thanks for tuning in to Chasing